Tommy Guns. Norvell has gotten money. He's just going through the motions now. Norvell brought DJ U in. Let's start with that question here before I go into buy and sell overall. Is Norvell, with all the decisions he's made, is DJ U the worst one he's made? I say no, and I'll explain that in a second too. I'm going to say DJ U is the second worst. Number one was the hiring of his staff. And I think multiple guys need to be fired at the end of this season. But there has to be something to the DJ U thing. And that's why I did the podcast this morning. Again, go check it out. I did it this Sunday morning. It went up noonish. And it's talking about Norvell. Is he on the hot seat? He brought in these guys. It's worked before, but he's used different kinds of quarterbacks before. He's always had success. DJ U is having his worst season in 5 years. The 5 years he's been in college. It's a fifth-year senior. It's your worst year? I know Florida State's not loaded this year, but dead last? Come on, man. That is problematic. That is problematic. Midtown. Someone needs to take over recruiting. Someone needs to take over play calls. Someone needs to take over quarterback development. When are people going to admit someone needs to start to take over head coach? Hey, man, if you haven't seen it, that podcast literally went up about noon today. He's, in my opinion, just for the record, Norvell won't be fired after this year, but his leash will be about an inch. By game 5 in 2025, he'll either be in or out. That's my opinion. And that's only, he'll get that one if he makes staff changes. If he doesn't want to do staff changes after this year, who knows what'll happen? Because they're going to have one of their worst seasons in 50 years. It's not what you're paying him for. And by the way, his contract's about $10 million a year. Let's see. Let's see. Chad Kinsler. We were told wise all spring, summer, and fall by Norvell how good this team is, and it's the best low line he's had. That is a good point, Chad. I don't know what to tell you there, brother. It's pretty daunting to figure out how did you go from one of the best units, blah, 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 you've had to. You can't block Georgia Tech, BC, and Memphis. Jake says, although I don't agree with him, it's only 3 games into a year. There's still hope for a 500 season. Is there? You sure? Not sure about that myself. That's a really bad one right there, man. That is really bad. Midtown, great quote. Cam Ward would be 0-3 with this team. Clemson fan here. Don't kill me. I'm just a vibe. Florida State played DJ U 2 seasons in a row. What did Norvell want to see to want to bring him in as the starting quarterback? Great question. It is a legit question. Why did you see Torrey Sims? Norvell is loyal to his coaches, and it's going to cost him big time. Let's say it again. If Norvell makes 0 changes at the conclusion of this season, it will cost him his job. 0 doesn't work. XM88. Let's fire the coaches. Warren Hester. There just isn't a top coach out there that can recruit and has been proven a winner. Very slim pickings. I was waiting for somebody to say this because it's true. One of my all-time favorite sayings in the world of business, recruiting, college football, whatever one you want to go into. It's not who you fire. It's who you hire. Quick. Name a coach with all of the following combinations. Put into one neatly wrapped gift box. FBS head coaching experience, preferably 7 to 8 years minimum. A winning record. Shows consistency against top teams, but doesn't underwhelm like they did yesterday, ironically, at Florida State against a team that have more talent. Is good with boosters, good with the media, and is definitely a guy that can get top 10 classes. And it's all proven on all facets with the points I just made. I could go on, but who is that? There aren't many. To that point, I want to bring up a Lane Kiffin moment right now. I have heard that Kiffin is the guy for Florida. Just want to bring this up. And there's something interesting about this. Timing is important with these coaching hires too. And Kiffin is, man, they got a good team at Ole Miss this year. Let's say Florida really does want to hire. Here's the problem. They're going to go to the playoff. National Signing Day is December 4th. Florida's class is going to crumble, obviously, just like Florida State's is. They're going to get rid of Billy Napier. That's not really a shock. It's just a matter of when, not if. Is Kiffin going to walk away from the Ole Miss job to take the Florida job? Because I don't see Florida wanting to just completely tank their recruiting class and the portal and all that while he's at Ole Miss. It's like, you can't work both jobs. Can't do it. That's the other part with this, with the new date, with signing day being earlier. It's really awkward to sign college coaches. They're still working at their other job. They're under contract. It's awkward. It looks bad if you leave a team for the season. Like, they're going to be, this isn't a Florida State Florida problem. This is all teams that ever make a decision now with recruiting and everything else. It is really hard. So I don't know what you can do, if anything, to make that work. So, I mean, next year, let's say Norvell comes back. I expect him to. Kiffin may not end up at Florida, even though I know he's interested from everything I've been told by numerous people. Why would he walk away from Ole Miss and a chance to make a deep run in the playoff? He's got an NFL quarterback. He's got a pretty good defense. Got a lot of speed on offense. I think they're going to be pretty good. So that's just my opinion. I don't think Florida's going to get him necessarily. Who would Florida hire if they didn't get Lane Kiffin? Think about that for a second. So we're talking about Urban. I've heard Urban wants the job, wants to get back in. I don't know if they would take him. That's hard to say. As for other names, I really don't know. I'd love to hear what people have to say, but the whole Urban thing, that's pretty interesting. All right, let's jump back in the chat here. Then I'll go to buy or sell. It's pretty crazy, though, with the Kiffin situation. Could be a barometer for a lot of people. Oh, good grief. I completely disagree with this. Chess ready. FSU missed on Coach Prime. Coach Prime is not the answer. He doesn't even do hardly any in-home visits with recruiting. He would struggle. Not the answer. He has terrible clock management. He's not experienced enough. This is not a place to learn on the job. Panama Jack. We only lost 2 O-line from last season and brought in 2 transfers to fill out the void. But my question is, it seems Alex Atkins may have missed on development of early in our like I said it the other day in the pod on Saturday. 20 and 21 classes. Florida State's O-line recruiting was terrible. Terrible. They just didn't have anybody that figured it out. Fisher did it and won one at Florida State. I don't know what that's referring to. You want a title, but I mean, it can obviously be done at Florida State. That's not a question. Blake Nagy. Recruiting and development of players is a big concern. Amen to that. Tribal Chief Noles. Boy, can you imagine the Heat if they go 0-4? Let me tell you something. They're not going 0-4. They're going 0-6. They got Cal coming up. They ain't winning that game. They're not. They're not beating Cal. Then they go to SMU, maybe, but they've got a mobile quarterback who Florida State always struggles with. And then they've got Clemson. Do you think Florida State, with their offense, is going to move the ball against Clemson's D? Yeah, I don't either. They're going to start 0-6. You heard it, 0-6. Let's see. Jake. Oh, boy. I hope this is wrong. I really wouldn't goof on Charleston Southern much. My boys choked on a big bone against Middle Tennessee State, and I'm sure that Notre Dame was expecting Northern Illinois to lay down too. Hey, he's right. Like Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame, and there's always a few games like that this season and every other. Don't take anything for granted, but Florida State's best chance to win is still Charleston Southern. That's sad that we're having that conversation. NK. No to Dion. He doesn't protect his own son at quarterback. The trenches would be even worse at Florida State under him. Yeah, that's another problem. Willie Montez. He is the man. People don't do this. Mike Norvell will take his pass where Bobby got us. Could not disagree more. Comparing him to Bobby Bowden is laughable. No offense. I do not see that. ZL Kobe. Any benefit to starting Brock Glenn or whoever the next true freshman may have is? Yeah, there are. To build some momentum and get a free feel for them for next year because DGU is not cutting it. Here's my take on the quarterback thing. At minimum, Norvell and his staff have to put people in there that can get it done consistently around the quarterbacks. And right now they're not. But then you still got to get the quarterbacks in there and get them some game experience like he's talking about. I don't know which one plays. I assume it's Brock Glenn. But they got to at least rotate with DJ. It's pretty bad, to put it mildly. It's pretty bad. I don't know how you could not think that at this point. It's really tough. Here in just a moment, we're going to do some buy or sell, even including discussing whether or not Norvell needs to go this year, next year. What are your thoughts on that? That's next at Locked On Seminoles. You've heard us talk about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel any time. Just visit FanDuel.com, download America's #1 sportsbook. All right. Let's see here. I'm going to read off a couple of these questions, and then I'll read some comments from the chat as I go along. When does Florida State win a game? This is something I can even share my screen on this. I've got it somewhere. Here. Their schedule is not very friendly. Here we go. Cal, at SMU, Clemson, bye week, at Duke, at Miami, home to North Carolina, at Notre Dame, Charleston Southern, and Florida. I'm thinking they win their first game at Duke. That is a ways away. I think they're going to start 0-6. That's what I think. So we'll see, but that's my take on that. What does everybody else think? Anybody think they're going to win against Cal or SMU? They're not beating Clemson. That's not. They don't have enough discipline right now to do that. They shoot themselves in the foot too much on offense. How many wins for Florida State this year in total? Again, I've talked about this earlier. I think they're going to win 2, Charleston Southern and Duke, and that's it. Curious to hear what everybody thinks. But now the one that I think is the hardest. Rank Florida State's positions on offense. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive line. Here in about 10 seconds, I'm going to give my own opinion on what I think the ranking should be. From 5 to 1. Right now, the #1 position to me is running back because they've at least made some good plays in the running game and the passing game, but they're far from infallible. Pass protection's not always great, not always hitting the right hole, but they are giving effort. And they, Topili, Rodell, Cam, etc. They've had some good plays from a lot of different guys. I think that's top of the board, no doubt about it, kind of deal. So they're well, I think that's easy. The worst position, the fifth best position to me, is tight end. Going into the last game against Memphis, they had one catch for 12 yards. Although Morlock did have 3 catches for like 50-some yards against Memphis. So that's good. They just really hadn't contributed much. Fourth was O-line. Self-explanatory. Both tackles are out. Ugh, that's a big problem. Then you got DJ U. Believe it or not, I got wide receivers next to the running backs, and it's just because they're not throwing enough down the field for me to really know how bad they are, and they've dropped a bunch of balls. You could interchange a few of those if you wanted, but like, it's crazy. It really is. So I think Florida State is a unique offensive team in that they just don't ever seem to have more than one position playing well on a given play. It's crazy. All right. Does Norvell need to fire assistants? If yes, if you believe that, put in the chat, if you're on the YouTube chat right now, which ones and why. I'm curious. How long does Norvell get is another question. I think he's done after next year at the latest if things kind of go on this trend. I think most people feel the same. Could he get fired at the end of this season? Yes, but he'd have to be like a 1-11. You go 1-11, you're always on the hot seat to get fired. Here's the other really interesting one, and I touched on this with some of the stuff regarding Lane Kiffin. If they got rid of Mike Norvell now or next season, name a coach or coaches that you think are all of the following. Somebody you'd want, somebody realistic, and somebody with a proven track record at the college level, which means they can recruit. It is proven they can recruit. I don't think there is a guy like that. I don't. Who are you going to hire? So I'm not saying they should necessarily get rid of Norvell this year or next year. That'll play itself out. Who are you going to hire? This is a very awkward scenario. There aren't many guys that I can think of that would fit that, but I'll get back into the chat and we'll see where we go from there. Chess Ready says Kiffin would be moving backwards. No, there's some truth to that. Blake Nagy, Urban back to the swamp. It's possible. It wouldn't shock me. It honestly wouldn't. Robert Rock says, DJU is a statue. Zero mobility. Looks like redshirt freshman in first game. How did FSU staff not see this? This team has zero heart. A 500 season would make the season a success. Robert, this Florida State team's not going 500, brother. It's not going to happen. They stink. They suck. They have squandered more opportunities than I can count, and it's only through 3 games. There are 9 more to go. 9 more. 9 more. That's crazy. Guy Davis. Not a large number of guys with FBS coaching experience in 7-8 years really brings it down. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, this isn't a Florida State problem. This is anybody making a move this year or next. For whatever the reason, there just aren't many guys that are in spots you're like, okay, you know this guy doesn't really want to be there. He doesn't fit. He's had some success, but he's not home. He's across the country, whatever. For any school, name the guy. I don't know if there is one. I really don't. This is an interesting thing. Tribal Chief Noles. What about the guy who won with Joe Burrow? There's a couple ways I could take that. If you're talking about the Cajun man, he's down in South Beach living with a woman half his age. The guy got fired at LSU. But the guy that was the coordinator, quarterback guru, he hates recruiting. Hates it. I met him, neat guy. But he's an offensive mind, wants to be calling plays and just doing that. He's an NFL guy. Forget his name, but he's an NFL guy. So that's not happening. Torrey Sims, Charlie Strong again. Oh, boy. I know old Charlie. He's a great guy, but I don't think he's going to be a head coach again. Interesting call here. Chris from Perry. Brian Hartline would be a good hire. Chess Ready says Florida will get Brian Kelly. I don't know why anybody want to hire Brian Kelly right now. There were some plays, but DJ had all the time in the world, and he held on to the fall. That's true. To me, that's a quarterback not taking all the reads and is locked in on his first read. I don't know if he's got much of a clock in the back of his head. I'm a little iffy on that. It's pretty bad. Tribal Chief Noles, 1 touchdown pass in 3 games. Yes, that is correct. Remember the one he threw against BC? They ran some kind of combination route, and one guy broke out from the slot, and both DBs went with the inside breaking route. I mean, there's nobody there. Complete bust. And he missed the guy badly. Come on, bro. Let's do better. Blake Nagy. Wouldn't it be funny if the only team we beat is Miami? No way that is happening right now, okay? Miami is going to kill Florida State this year. Let's just call it what it is. Florida State is averaging a little over 250 yards of offense a game. Florida State is in trouble in that game. Miami's number 1 in the nation in passing. Yeah, you're not beating Miami. Come on, man. You got to be realistic. Yo Fly. So a Noel fan, I'm supposed to be on board for a second rebuild? Hell no, Norvell needs to go. You know what? I get it. I get it. 3 kids and dad, that Florida FSU game is looking pretty competitive for all the wrong reasons. That game will be awful. Beyond the toilet bowl. That is just the sewer bowl right now. So bad. Let's see. Chris. Florida booster ain't going to hire competent coach. Lane Kiffin is the same as Dion as they want control. Florida won't give control to Kiffin. Yeah, it depends on how you define it. But yeah, they're like those Gator Bowl Gator boosters and stuff. Depends on what you mean by control, Chris. But that's, it's weird how they've done NIL. They want you to ask them for money for specific players. It's not just a pool you pull from. It's weird. Yeah, that could be a problem. Cuban Kane. Who would be favored if UF and Florida State would play next week? Great question. I would say Florida State because their defense is pretty good based on the Memphis game. They weren't good early, but they played pretty well. I was watching Florida against A&M, and one of A&M's biggest problems is their O-line. It just is. They were pushing Florida all over the field. First-time starter at quarterback, didn't have to throw much because they just handed off where he took off and ran. And they still scored over 30. That's not a good sign. Let's see. From Jake. After watching 3 TV interceptions for a season and a half, why doesn't someone take a look at what DJ does the best and put a package together for him that works? I'm sure his confidence is shot right now. Yeah, I talked about that, but he needs to be a part of that too. Like DJ has to tell him, this is what I want to run. We're 0-3. What do you have to lose by asking me? I'm not blaming the players. The blame for the consistency, poor performance-wise, is squarely on the coaches. If they can't fix it, then Mike needs to hire someone who can. Like I said, they need multiple guys, multiple, to be let go after this season. No doubt about it. Trav, maybe the loyal to your uni? I don't know what that even means. Brock Glenn is worse than DJ U, sadly. That is from Keep Chopping. I don't know how you could say that. Brock hasn't played enough yet. And if he is, Lord help anybody that follows Florida State in any way, shape, or form, media or otherwise. Chess ready. FSU has just to focus on the run before switching quarterbacks. They can't block anybody, that's for sure. They need to focus on something. All right, we got Chris. Prime issues with O-line isn't in a great school, but the people want to get in a year 2. Norvell is 5 years in. If Prime was at Florida, he will be getting all them Florida recruits. I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't think he's a very good coach. Let's see. Yo Fly, I'm being loyal to my university. That's why Norvell needs to go. I think a lot of people feel that way. No doubt about it. Keep chopping doesn't have a very positive outlook. He says for the final record for Florida State, 1-11 with a win over Charleston Southern. Oh, that's brutal. That is brutal. This is an interesting post. Seminole Siegel 83. I saw your video from this morning, and people are just football fans. They don't know how universities work. And I was talking about the buyout, the length of the contract, trying to get assistant coaches, all of that together. Yeah, you can't just fire coaches every 3 or 4 years. It's too expensive. But the contracts the way they are now, it just doesn't work that way. It's the assistant coaches will be the ones get really short leashes now. That's just my opinion. Klubnik will throw for 400 yards. Our DBs can't cover crossing patterns. Linebackers can't cover running backs or tight ends. Richard Brookins. The offensive line needs to start playing. I wonder if this is like the Chris Ricks situation when the line despised him and would not block for him. His career went down the tubes from there. Seminole Siegel 83. I don't think we win a game. AMAC, wow. 0-6 to start the season. That's ugly. And 0-6 is my prediction. Again, here are the next 3 games. They got Cal at SMU, and then Clemson comes to Doak Campbell. You really think they're winning those games? Why would I think they are? Why would any of you think that Florida State is? They stink. So bad. Norvell is legit. He made the wrong call on DJ. It happens. Nobody is in wheat in college now. Trav, Norvell being legit at 0-3 and the rankings, we read off a couple of these again for you. This is just offense. Points per game, they're 124th. Total offense, they're 128th. Their ability to run the football, 52 yards a game, is 133rd out of 134. Their ability to throw the football is 222 and 74th. Yeah, I'm not sure he's the guy. I'm a little concerned about that. Let's see. Oh, here's a funny one. Guy Davis. On my rankings for offense, I said, put the positions in order. Quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, O-line. Guy Davis states, I wanted to rank them all 5. I think running back is number 1. I think receivers 2, quarterback 3, O-line 4, tight ends dead last at 5. That's where I would rank them. But to each their own. AMAC. Yes, this is true, AMAC. You really think only 2 wins? That is crazy. Well, here's the deal, man. Look at the schedule. Where do the wins come from? Duke sucks. You could beat Duke, maybe. Hopefully. And you have Charleston Southern before Florida. But here's the thing. With where this season's at, the expectations and all that, when does the clock strike 0 and Cinderella's slipper kind of fall off on the effort brigade? Like they haven't played with a ton of effort this year anyway. I worry about it getting worse, not better. See what I mean? That is a concern. Richard Brookins says, what I do not understand is why there is no cohesion on either side of the ball. That is true. Why isn't there more cohesion for Florida State? Let's talk about that for a second. Richard, well said. That's a very good question. Very, very, very good question. Same staff, same head coach. The O-line had over 200 starts combined. And that's ridiculous. Yeah, you lost. Receiver was probably the biggest question. Linebacker had some depth issues. Get it. But they got a lot of talent in the secondary. D-line had a lot of guys. Patrick Payton, Daryl Jackson, Joshua Farmer, Marvin Jones Jr. And there's just there's always one guy out of spot. Doesn't seem like anybody's taking responsibility on the field. I don't know the full answer on that one, but it's Richard Brookins with that again. And the question is, what I do not understand is why there is no cohesion on either side of the ball. That's the second time I said that. And the reason I bring it up is it's legit. Like, what are you doing? Why is it so bad? Tribal Chief, no stats. I have a bunch of them, brother, and they're all bad. Florida State stinks, okay? It's so bad. Richard Brookins, maybe a time for a new offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. Really hard to argue with that. If FSU can't even beat Memphis, it's going to be hard winning against better in-conference teams coming up that have a better teams in the trenches. That is from Chris E. Ain't no doubt about that. That's 100% like you just read my mind. Why would Florida State suddenly be able to do it? Why? What's the reason for that? I don't see how that's feasible. It's just my opinion on it, but take it for what it's worth. Let's see here. Got all kinds of questions in here. One person, I ain't going to mention the name, said Willie Taggart is available. Oh, dear God, that's terrible. One manual. It all comes back to the CEO and his mindset, way of doing things, and decisions that are made. 100%. It's on Mike Norvell. No doubt about it. Seminole Siegel. Mike Norvell is going nowhere. Today, no. You think he can go through this horrible season and start next year bad and not get canned? I got another thing coming to you. NK. There isn't a guy that fits all of that, but Kiffin or Mark Stoops would be huge upgrades. Possible. I watched Stoops play Georgia to win point yesterday with far less talent. He's got a connection to Florida State. Would he take the Florida State job? He'd be gone at Kentucky. I could see it. Will Florida State even have a player on the team to be good next season? Poor recruiting over time is coming back to haunt the program. This statement comes from Alan Saunders. Those 20 and 21 classes, not so good. This is an interesting comment, and I don't know if he would leave or not because they got some money there. It's SEC. What the heck is the guy's name? He's the head coach at Missouri. I don't know his whole deal, but he's won pretty well there. That would be interesting. Norvell's best recruiting ranking is 12. That's from Sports Icons TV. That's not very good. It's not. It's not very good. First one. Oh, wow. This is funny. Brett Taylor says Florida State versus Florida. First 1 to 10 wins. Boy, that's sad. Ronald Perkins, Miami versus Clemson for the ACC title, and FSU has to play both of them. Murderous. Yeah, that's not going to go well. Chris from Perry. I worked with Buster Faulkner at Valdosta. He'll be a good head coach one day. Let's see. Brett Taylor. Lane Kiffin divorced John Reeves' daughter. A lot of bad feelings still left in Gainesville. Interesting. Sports Icons TV. Defensive line coach from Texas, and he coached in the NFL, or Brian Hartline. Juan Manuel. Who would you think would make Florida State a first-rate organization? If you mean head coach, I don't think there's anybody out there that fits right now. You're going to have to take a flyer, which I know everybody wants to hear none of that, but I don't think there is one. Again, the qualifications don't exist in terms of what's available. All of the following are important: definitive experience at the FBS level, proven recruiter, like he's naturally comfortable talking with teenagers. Hardly any adults are. Somebody who's used to competition at the big boy level, not just a downtrodden program like Illinois that's got a decent head coach now and everything, but can he coach at Florida State? I doubt it. And then finally, you're talking about a scenario where it's got to be somebody that has just got some charisma and whatnot. That's one thing Norvell has. He's easy for media and people relate to. He seems like a nice guy. All of those things are necessary because, like the Nick Saban kind of coach, it's prickly with the media and a lot of his players and stuff. That's not going to work. All right. Painter Joe, why does the defense stay in man coverage all the time? No adjustments on defense. It's the coaches on both sides of the ball. The defense, they have played a lot of man. That's kind of their history. We'll see why later, I guess. But I would like to see a little more mix-up too, my honest opinion. If you had your wish, who would you let go on the staff? Who do you see Norvell realistically letting go, if anybody? I don't want to name names, but I think there are guys on both sides of the ball whose seats are really hot. And it wouldn't be surprising if any coordinators were gone too, because that's another way to do it. Just kind of start all over and blow it up. But I'd say at least 3 should be gone if I was to guess. Two's minimum. We'll see after that. Grimy Grime. At this point in the season, I think it's safe to say that Norvell is worse than Jimbo in his last season at Florida State. Grimy, you are correct. Daytona guy. Say we only win 1 or 2 games this year and recruits bail, I think is what he meant to say. Or did that? Yep, read it's bail as well as players. Could we be the new Nebraska? No, Nebraska's biggest problem is location for recruiting. The right coach is hired at Florida State. There's talent around. That wouldn't take very long. How many coaches did Texas have in between Brown and Steve Sarkisian? That's a good question. I don't know the answer. 2 or 3? The one guy that was with Urban was the coordinator, and you also had Charlie Strong. I know those 2. We got to put the young kids in. That's according to Cake. Bill Valentine says, this is all the karma y'all complained last year, crying like a bunch of 8-year-olds. You reap what you sow. It's an interesting statement. Alan Saunders, Oregon State hid DJ's flaws better than Florida State, has better running game, better coaching, plus DJ did play with more confidence. Chris, Nebraska is better trajectory than Florida State. Nebraska is getting legit 5-star O-line and talents. Norvell can't coach nor recruit well. Painter Joe, bad coaching on both sides of the field. Yeah, there ain't no doubt about that. There's a lot of that stuff right there, brother. Wanamanuel. The funny thing I see is that a lot of the young, hungry coaches across college football, that their teams are performing very well, but will not be considered, but a Dan Mullen will. It's possible. Why would Brett leave better school at Oklahoma and SEC for Florida State in a dysfunctional ACC? Talking about in conversation thing there. I don't know who's going to go where, but right now, just as an overview, I don't think there are many coaches that are going to leave their jobs to go to Florida State or anybody else. It's pretty wild. With that, I'm going to wrap it up here today. Thank you to everybody that showed up to the live show. I truly appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun to kind of vent, discuss some questions, talk about some of the things going on with Florida State football. I'll be back again tomorrow in some capacity. It might take a little. I'm going to post these, going to cut them up and post them to the show on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, any place you get your pods, you can get them. Make sure you check it out. Please share this pod. Please like this podcast. And again, comment. You got something you want to hear about, something you want to state from today's show. I'm more than happy to hear what you got to say. I'd love to hear it. So everybody, thank you very much. I will see you again very soon. Oh, with Gametime.